everyone. This is Lauren Steiner with the Robust Opposition, and I am with two fantastic Nevada Bernie-crats, Joseph Sacco here and Christine Kramer. This is the problem when you have reached a level that Bernie Sanders reached, okay? So he was a scrappy outsider when he ran the first time, and now he was kind of starting to run as the presumable front runner because he won like 46% of the vote. He wanted to be not known as the outsider anymore. But by hiring the establishment people, especially as it affects Nevada, these establishment people worked for Harry Reid, and we all know what Harry Reid did in 2016 and how he called the Culinary Workers Union the night before and talked to the boss, the union leader, and said, you have to make sure your workers caucus for Hillary, even though they were neutral and even though Harry Reid was neutral. And he called the heads of all the casinos and told them to give the workers time off with pay in order to do this. Needless to say, any of us who were following this were concerned when he appointed his chief of staff and the number 2 guy, you know, who came out of Reid. But the idea presumably was, I think Bernie still maybe erroneously thinks of Harry Reid as my friend. He always called him my friend, Harry Reid.
Very polite.
I am a little bit more skeptical about what Harry Reid thinks of Bernie. And I'm not saying that his campaign staff is trying to sabotage him, don't get me wrong, but it's more like what you said, Christine. You know, when you hire out of the establishment, when you're not hiring people who are Bernie grassroots diehards, people who've been listening to Bernie since he's been on Tom Hartman, people who would go to the ends of the earth for free for Bernie. Those are the people that you would want to hire, and those are the people that were... But
I think much of this is this unity pledge that they have in the 2020 cycle that they didn't have in the 2016 cycle. So that is why Bernie is constantly asked, are you going to support the eventual nominee? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? That they don't want people who are actively going to go out to the press and say, you know, this is rigged. The DNC was very upset by, it was paid campaign staff in 2016 who were saying this was rigged. This new campaign staff is never going to say it's rigged. This new campaign staff is messaging on, we trust the DNC. Don't fight the DNC. Don't fight the NV Dems. Just trust us. We have experts.
Whether we're talking about the hirings of a campaign like the Bernie Sanders campaign or what the Culinary Union is saying and doing from the top down, I think the common thread here is that people have vested interests. So like with the campaign workers, the consultants want their next job, so their allegiance is to what's best for their career, not the movement. Unlike the activists and the passionate people like us on the ground that fight tooth and nail, despite our reputations, despite the consequences, we move forward for and with the movement. Now, speaking on the Culinary Union, I think that the criticisms of the Bernie bros, of the Culinary Union leadership, is conflated to be an attack on working class people, which is the furthest thing from the truth. The Culinary Union in Las Vegas, not only do they have so much political power because of the Reid machine, they also have a vested interest in keeping the healthcare system in this country, and especially in Nevada, to be a for-profit system, because they've negotiated these rates, they're invested in the insurance companies, and at the end of the day, they want to keep those jobs, they want to keep those leadership positions. And I think it's important to say, as working class people, that our fight should be and is for all workers to be represented. And that's why I'm in this race. That's why I'm continuing to volunteer, because healthcare for all is so important. No matter who you are, no matter how good your job is, if you lose it tomorrow, you lose that insurance. What's better, for everyone to be covered or just union represented workers?
We need to take platform votes all the way to the floor of the national convention. What happened at the platform committee in 2016 were the Sanders delegates, we signed petitions. We believed that there was going to be a floor debate about minimum wage being $15, and we believed that there was going to be a floor debate on TPP. That was a decision by Sanders' campaign to pull back and not have a contested vote about the platform. We came as platform committee members ready to whip those votes. That would have been our role in the process.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at, though the campaign may want to go softly and silently into the night because the consultants are thinking about their career and their next gig, that I am organizing outside of a campaign specifically around the issue of Medicare for all delegates, so that they know that they can be a voting bloc to get it on the platform, vote the platform at the national, and if we get to a second ballot, try to get those people bound to vote for the candidate most likely to carry out Medicare for all, that in any scenario, at every level of the delegate process, you're voting on the platform at your county party convention where you live. You put in a platform, it's called a plank. You say you want a plank that is Medicare for all. That from the county convention, that goes to your state convention. At your state convention, you organize, and that's part of why my PAC is organized, because I have the resources and the experience to help you with this vote. You want your state platform to support Medicare for all. Then you want to make sure that your members vote for the person. Some states, the platform committee member is appointed. So in Nevada, I was appointed the platform committee member. Other states, it's an open vote. So find out who that is, and then you send someone who's going to fight for Medicare for all to that national platform committee meeting. Then when it comes to delegates, elect delegates that are Medicare for all. A difference between 2016 and 2020 now is in 2016, the Sanders campaign kept their hands off the delegates. If you did the hustle, you did the work, you earned that spot, you were able to appear on the state convention ballot to run for national delegate. And they didn't do anything as far as kicking you off. The Clinton campaign did cherry pick who their delegates were going to be. And it is a form of election rigging, because if you're taking off the people that are the activists and all of that and really sticking with the party professionals, then you know how that ballot's going to end up. Sanders had a lot of, they called us rogues, get elected. And that's how you ended up with people in yellow shirts.
That's how you ended up with people like myself
And-
as a national delegate, because here's the thing, when we campaigned at the state convention, when we went into that state convention, there were at least 1,000 people that said, I want to be a national delegate. And of course, there's only a handful of people that could be elected to do that. Those of us that did get into that position, we got there because we campaigned and said, we are Bernie or bust. Now, that was 2016. Now in 2020, I think what we should be talking about is what Senator Sanders always says: this movement is more than a president. This movement is more than one person. We have to stay focused on what our core values are and the changes we want to see in this country that will take a lot more effort than electing one president, one person. It's going to be about reforming our entire Congress, getting all of these corporate candidates, all of these big pharma people out of our government. That's going to be a lot of work, and what we should be talking about right here, right now, is identifying those Medicare for all delegates that are essentially Medicare for all or bust.
Okay, well,
as well as the rest of our progressive agenda.
Right, rest of our agenda, like the Green New Deal, fair trade deals, what have you. I want to go back to this thing, how it's different, because I didn't realize. I did see that the Sanders people were inviting people to apply to be delegate. I thought to myself, gee, that's interesting. Can they really do that? Because the way we did it here in California was that in every assembly district, congressional district, we had elections. And we formed a slate, and the slate that I was on was put together by Susie Shannon, who was the only DNC member in California to support Bernie Sanders. But I did get elected. I had the #1 vote because I have been an activist on the issues, and people know me for more than just the Sanders campaign. But I got elected, and I was one of those troublemakers. I mean, when I found out that he had ordered 25 minority planks that he was going to introduce on the floor, when I found out that he wasn't going to do that, and I wrote a whole article about this in Truth Out, it's called Beyond the Booing, a Sanders Delegate Reflects on the Protests, I felt like, no, I don't want to just go to that convention for a coronation for Hillary Clinton. we found out that he was going to not introduce the minority planks because he wanted to, quote unquote, save his powder for a floor fight on the rules, on the super delegates. And then I snuck in with some people into the Rules Committee meeting the night before, chaired by Barney Frank, and all of Sanders' people were voted down every time they tried to make a motion. And finally, the Sanders people called a halt. They went into a separate room. Jeff Weaver told everybody about the Immunity Commission, and everybody was encouraged to sign on. They said, you don't have to agree, but we're going to be outnumbered, and this is what we've worked out. So the whole thing on the convention, all we had left to do was my little TPP protest that I had been planning for several weeks. We had a telephone conference call with 127 delegates. Then we had a whip meeting with about 25 delegates, and then we did it, and we started chanting. As soon as Elijah Cummings mentioned the word platform, we started chanting no TPP, and everybody held up those signs that Clem Balanoff and John Lesh brought in from the union. And we folded them up because they were looking into our backpacks, so we had them all folded up. And all you saw, if you ever Google that convention images, all you see are pictures of us holding the TPP signs. And even though CNN and the rest tried to keep their cameras off of the California delegation, which was doing a lot of booing and a lot of other signs, you couldn't miss these signs, and you couldn't miss the fact. So it was noted that Bernie Sanders, and probably not of his own volition, sent us all a text telling us not to disrupt out of a courtesy. He wrote a personal courtesy to me, he wrote. We ignored him because this is a movement, and it is not me, it is us. So
this all ties back to that now the campaign wants to screen the delegates. So they're screening delegates for who is going to be passive and who is going to be led like a lamb to the slaughter. And because I've seen some major Twitter personalities, and people need to start speaking up right now. If you have applied to the Sanders campaign to be a delegate and they have told you no, force them to remove you off the ballot. There is a part during the delegate selection process rules that gives the campaign the right to remove you from your state party ballot. Go down with this fight. Force the state director of the Sanders campaign where you live, force them to have to put your name on a list and remove you.
Wow.
I think that you are going to
I'm going to do that.
I think you are going to end up finding out that they like to control this stuff in the back room. That's how the consultants like to do it. They don't want to be the person who stuck their name on a report because they have to make that request to the credentials committee in the state that you're from. Force them to have to remove you. Right now, we're being too passive because the campaign is saying you need to apply to be a delegate. And now I'm hearing of people, we had someone in our group today say he applied. There's no better person who supports
one
this
of the
platform.
Leaders of the 3 major Bernie groups in Los Angeles.
Was told he can't apply to be a delegate. He ought to apply, do the paperwork through your state party, get all the way up there, get to that step where that state director has to remove his name and then blast it. We get enough people going, what the heck is going on here? Why are they doing it? Because it's a documented motion. Force them to remove you, because we have to both be civilly disobedient, both to the DNC, these state parties, when there are things happening, but we also have to say, this movement is our movement. This is what was built. It's built by our blood, sweat, and tears. There are a whole lot of people in it that literally were laughing at us in 2016. They're only up for this check. You force them to put their name on the record to remove you.
And when you think about it, if you look at conventions throughout history, they were raucous affairs.
Yes.
There was not supposed to be agreement at conventions. Conventions are supposed to be where you decide all this stuff.
We didn't get to this point in history where we're in the richest country in the world and we're lacking all these social programs. Medicare for all is not at our fingertips. It's just at our fingertips. But we didn't get here by being well behaved. Okay? So rise up against the Bernie bro narrative. In fact, if you're being called a Bernie bro, my thought is embrace that. You know, these different terms that have been used through history to hold people down, we need to reclaim these terms and be proud of our activism. It's not sitting at the back of the room being quiet and well-behaved that's going to move us forward as a movement.
And already
we all have to fight every day.
We already have the paid positions on the Sanders campaign being used as a tool of the consultocracy to hire their friends. Do not let the delegate positions become a way of favors for this guy's friend and that guy's friend, or maybe this is a super volunteer, that they treat the activists as a cult and they treat their fellow consultants as that it's a business. Well, there are those of us who are activists who have the capability of earning their living within the world of campaigns, who weren't even given the courtesy of interviews with the Sanders campaign, because that is not the culture this time. I think that this is a test of what kind of leader Bernie Sanders would be as president if he doesn't have the chutzpah to put delegates in place who are real fighters, who are going to take it to the floor. Do you think he's going to support people running for Congress, people running in their state houses? Because if this is the measurement of we want people who are going to go along and follow orders, that's not what we're here for. And if that's the type of delegate you're going to get, we can already predict the narrative of how this convention's going to turn out.
And Christine, not to mention, you know, we've heard a lot of misinformation and disinformation. It comes from within campaigns. It comes definitely from within the Democratic parties, state by state. So I think it's very important that we always question the person in front of you that's saying, don't do this or don't do that. So if you have questions, look at your state's delegate selection plan. Look at the DNC rules and regulations on whatever it is. And whether you're going to be a delegate or not, or you want to be one and you don't get elected this time around, it's important that we carry the movement forward.
We don't want people who are like, go along with whatever they tell you. We want people that are going to fight for this movement, because it is beyond Bernie at this point.
Corporatists that show up to that convention, I have fought them. I fought them face to face at the National Platform Committee, to the point I had to have bodyguards to stand next to me so I could go to the bathroom. That's how aggressive they're going to be. And those were the pharma bros. Pharma bros versus Bernie bros. It is going to be a white knuckle fight. And if we have to fight within that campaign, do it.
And that's a great way to close my show, because I always close my show with keep fighting. And thank you guys.
Yeah,
Love
thanks,
you.
Laura.